Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Roux Institute Presents. Oh, I'm seeing participants adding, so I'm gonna pause for a second here and just let the numbers climb. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in a second. This is sort of like when you go to a show and there are still people in the lobby. So we're just going to pause and hold on. Okay. Excellent. Welcome, everybody, to this installment of the Roux Institute Presents. My name is Mike Pollastri. I'm the Senior Vice Provost for Portland and the academic lead at the Roux Institute. And I will be your host and moderator for this session. This is intended to be an opportunity for us to invite the university campus, the university community, and the Portland and Maine communities to get involved and understand the sorts of things that are going on here at the Roux Institute. You may or may not know that we have alternating hybrid and virtual events. So we've done 6 of these so far, and we have 3 left. One on June 22nd, one on July 6th, and one on July 20th. So keep an eye out for those. If you are in the in-person ones, they are hybrid. You can join online or in person, but there will be a networking reception for those who are on campus for that. So keep an eye out for it. And this is being recorded, as you've heard, and you'll be able to review it afterwards and share it with friends from our YouTube channel. So this is a very exciting session. This is on this Friday. We will have our inaugural commencement ceremony. We have 44 graduates from our program at the Roux Institute this year, 30 of whom will be attending the ceremony this Friday at the Gateway Center across the street from the Roux Institute. This is a huge milestone for the Roux Institute. We were founded about 2.5 years ago, and the folks on this call are representatives of our inaugural enrolling class, who really, as much as any of the rest of us, helped us found the Roux Institute and turn it into what it is. They helped us through the launch. They helped us to set the path for students that follow after them. And so I'm thrilled to invite or to have these graduates here with us. So I thought what I would do to start with is to tell you a little bit about the graduating class. So of the 44, 34 of our graduates are already employed by companies here in Maine. And then one of the graduates is starting another master's program this fall. We are delighted to be a vehicle for lifelong learning. So the average age of our graduating class is 33 years old. The age range is 23 to 44. So it's a way we want to encourage those who are thinking about retooling at any point in your career to take advantage of the lifelong learning opportunities here at the Roux Institute. 16 of our 44 are graduates from Bates, Colby, Bowdoin, or the University of Maine. 3 of our 44 are veterans or active service members. And 7 of our graduates moved to Maine during the program. And one of the challenges that we are looking to meet here at the Roux Institute is to draw talent into Maine. So we're thrilled to be able to bring students from outside of Maine. So to start this off, I thought I'd just go around and ask everybody to please introduce yourselves. Just mention your degree program and where you were and what you were doing before you came to the Roux Institute. So I'm going to start with Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm from Maine. I went to UMaine, got my degree in marketing up there, and then came back down to Portland, worked in advertising for a little bit, and then moved to New York, worked in advertising, and then came back to Maine to the Roux. My program, I did the Master of Professional Studies in Analytics, and now I'm working at Teapot Digital Labs.
Thank you. Darrell?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you, Mike, for shaving some age off of me. So, your oldest graduate is actually 51.
Whew, all right, we're going to update that note.
So I'm Darrell Amaro, and I am an MSCS Align student. And when I started at the program, I was a senior manager of product management at WEX. As of today, and for the next couple of weeks, I will continue to be a senior product manager, senior manager of product at WEX. But last night I was offered a position at Amazon, so I'll be joining Amazon's product team. Oh. Staying in Maine though.
Wonderful, congratulations.
And I was told the other night that I will be the first MSCS graduate from the Roux. So
that is correct. You will be getting you will be duly noted as such at the commencement ceremony. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Bae?
Hi, sorry, something just happened on my computer. Hi, I'm Bae. I'm also in the analytics program. So I finished in April, and before the pandemic, I finished my bachelor's from Smith College a couple years ago. And right before the pandemic, I was in Tanzania for a couple months, came back to Maine, and basically was unemployed during the pandemic, which is right when the Roux opened. So that was what I was doing. And now I am the data manager for Portland Public Schools.
Great. Thank you. And Liz?
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm in the Master's in Project Management program, about to finish up in July. And before I entered the Roux, I was just finishing my undergrad at Tufts. So came right to the Roux after undergrad, which was awesome.
Terrific. Thanks very much. So I'd like to actually talk a little bit about the pace that you all set. So the first class, finished your programs essentially in 2 years, beginning to end. And Darrell, you did the Align program and the master's program, and so you slammed it all into 2 years, which is impressive. So I wonder if you could all comment on your experience of staying on track. Like, how did you manage your sort of work-life balance in order to stay enrolled at the pace that you did? And also, what I'm thinking about, what sorts of tools were provided to help you stay on track? Would like to take a whack at one of those.
Sure, I can jump in first. So I started in January 2021, and I'm finishing up my last 2 classes right now, so I'll be completely done in mid-August. And I overloaded in the spring so that I didn't have to go into the fall. And I would not recommend this path for most people. It was a lot, and honestly, what really kept it for me was the fact that I started my program in the pandemic. So there wasn't work travel. There was a lot of things that would have added normal pressures into life weren't there. There were other pressures, but it sort of opened up the window and allowed studies to go along.
Right.
For me personally, I think it was a support system within my classmates. So I think just like the bond you build with people in your classes was really important for me, because you have your family and you have your friends, but they don't really understand what you're going through day to day and the stress and like just all of it. You need someone to vent to who actually knows what's happening. You need people that you can go to just who know what you're experiencing. And so I think that was huge. I know for all the people in my classes, we really came together and helped each other through those hard times. And as far as tools, I think the number one tool the Roux has is Annie. I think if it wasn't for her, I definitely would not have gotten through this program. Her and her team were always there to let us complain or just let us talk to them, and they always listened. They always tried to help. So I think that is definitely by far the greatest tool.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Liz.
For me, it was the option to take asynchronous classes as I was kind of on the job market looking for different positions and interviewing and then transitioning into a full-time position. Having that asynchronous option and being able to go through at my own pace is what allowed me, similar to Darrell, kind of to overload sometimes and kind of balance all that stuff out, because I could make my schedule and go to work meetings and then go to class whenever I wanted to, really, which was awesome. That really made it work for me. And the Roux did a great job designating specific asynchronous sections for Roux students. So I got a lot out of those where we weren't having live meetings, but I could still on the discussion board see other people who were at the Roux and kind of in the same boat as me. So I think that was awesome.
Terrific. Faye, you want to add anything?
Well, I think definitely just everything that Sarah said was really true for me as well. And then I also want to echo a little bit of what Darrell said, in that like I don't really know if going that quickly I would like necessarily recommend. Like I think that I'm going to finish a quarter before Sarah, and I don't know if that was really like necessarily worth it. I took summer classes last summer when most of my peers took off. And that was really hard because summer is what we all wait for in Maine. But I had a tutor that term, and that was really helpful, which is available through Northeastern for free, which made doing homework on really nice days a little bit more bearable. So.
Terrific. So if any of you were approached by a prospective Roux student, what would you tell them in terms of pacing?
I think
Sarah,
that, I mean, my answer is short. I think it's really just kind of trial and error. I think that's the nice thing about the Roux is you can adjust as you go. And at least for like CPS, it's only 6 weeks. So if you don't like what you're doing in those 6 weeks, then you have a lot more opportunities to kind of test out new combinations and ways to work. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Darrell, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say I would actually add into that, because the distinguishing issue with the Corey students is that we have, our 14 and 15 week semesters. So I think if you take the advice and listen to what your peers or predecessors have said, so for example, when you take CS 5800 graduate algorithms, just take that class, focus on that class. Don't worry about, am I going to fall behind, or is it going to take me another semester? Because things like that, just they add up, and you don't necessarily realize where you are until, halfway through the semester. So then you have another 6 weeks and you're like, maybe I should have only done one class a semester.
Keep the pace up. Yeah. Especially if you, if you're an adult, a working adult, with a family or what have you. It's there is some flexibility in that regard. Okay, well, let's get a little more specific then. So Liz, you moved to Maine in January of 2021, and you enrolled in the project management master's program. So what drew you to the program, and what drew you to Maine?
Sure. So I'm actually from Maine originally, and then I did go to Boston area to do undergrad. And most of my peers who go to a Boston school, even if you're from Maine, end up staying in Boston after. I kind of knew I didn't want to do that. So I was looking around for different options of coming back to Maine while I was still at Tufts in undergrad. And I got an email or something about an open house at the Roux Institute. And I was kind of like, oh, this seems kind of cool. A lot of it seemed like super related to computer science and coding and stuff that I wasn't necessarily interested in at the time. But then I saw the project management section, and they put this word cloud on the screen of just like all the things you could do with project management, from education, healthcare, technology. And I was like, wow, this seems like a great thing to kind of get a good basis coming out of undergrad, where you can kind of jump into any industry. And there's obviously really generous scholarships. That was a huge turning point for me personally. Yeah, that really hit it home for me, that general applicability of the programs and the flexibility and the commitment to Maine, which was where I was coming from too. So
you're prompting me to just remind everybody who's listening that we were, in addition to the foundational gift from Dave and Barb Roux, we received $100 million from the Harold Alfont Foundation. The majority of which is for need-based scholarships. In fact, this first class whose class is graduating was supported by just over $700,000 in scholarship funding. So we've heard repeatedly that it made a huge difference to people to make the decision to start their program and to do the program here at the Roux Institute. And we are really grateful to the Alphon Foundation for supporting this important work as we look to build a tech and life science economy here in Maine. So quick mention for the Alphon Foundation. Great. So about half of our graduates at Northeastern University, they end up working for one of their co-op employers. That's one of our points of pride. Bae, what was your experience like in your co-op? And then you ended up staying with one of your employers. What made you decide to stay with them?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that went into that decision. So my co-op was like a data analyst position with Portland Public Schools, which I really wanted to do something that was not in the sort of like corporate world. Like I'm not really interested. A lot of the analyst positions in Maine are at banks because we have like so many like insurance and like big local banks. And so I ended up at Portland Public Schools because it was sort of like a mission driven, like interesting student data sort of role. And my supervisor in my co-op actually left her job like a month or two after I started. And that sort of, when that job opened, I don't think that staying wasn't an option if she hadn't gotten another opportunity. So I think that like that decision to stay wasn't something that I had thought about because I didn't think it was going to be possible, but it's turned out to be really great. I've learned a lot, and I get to be like even more part of the community. I'm from Portland. I went to Portland schools. So yeah, I guess that's how I ended up here, and it's good. Yeah.
That's terrific. So, and Liz, you also had a great co-op experience, and you ended up staying with that employer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So last summer I did a co-op with LL Bean, had a great experience, and they were really excited that I was getting these skills in project management. So kind of from the beginning, there was that conversation about like, what other positions are there for me at the company? And they're one of the partners of the Roux Institute. So they're obviously really committed to the mission. Had a great experience over the summer, really got integrated with the team, and then a project management position opened up within the department that I was co-oping in, which seemed super perfect for me. And then I ended up getting it, and it's just been a great journey. And I really don't think that I would have been ready to get into that position if I didn't have these skills from the Roux. So from the beginning, it's just been a great partnership with LL Bean and the Roux, and I'm just kind of go along for the ride almost, it feels like. So been perfect.
And has it, just out of curiosity, has it played out as you expected? You mentioned the word cloud where project management is in everything. Are there a lot of different types of the LL Bean business where you're plugging in?
I didn't catch that.
Oh, sorry. So you mentioned the word cloud about how project management can plug into a lot of different things. Are you finding that to be true even within a single company at LL Bean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've done 3 or 4 projects now, and there's been communications projects, training projects, software implementations. Even within my department, it seems like I can just move into any role with any team, and I can help a lot of people with my base set of skills in different areas. So absolutely.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Great. Let's turn to Sarah. So Sarah, can you tell us about what brought you to the Roux? Tell us your path, how you got here. And then tell us about the program. So you enrolled in the analytics program. How did things go from the classroom, the co-op, to your new job? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like I said, beginning, my background is in marketing and I worked in advertising. And a lot of what I did was in consumer insights and market research. So things like doing competitive audits and customer interviews, focus groups, so that kind of stuff. So it was a lot more qualitative, I guess. And then when the pandemic happened, the agency I worked at kind of crumbled, and I was left to reevaluate what I wanted to do and what my skills were. And that's when I realized that I was really missing a lot of the more data, like numbers side of things. And that's when I heard about the Roux. So it all kind of worked out. And I will say that going into it, I I never thought I was going to end up as like a data scientist or really a data analyst. That was never my end goal. My end goal was to get these skills that I didn't already have, and then kind of use that to just have a stronger resume and just a stronger skill set. So yeah, so went through the courses, and for me, it was all new. I know like a lot of the kids, are not a lot, but there was students in my classes who were engineers or had math backgrounds or economics. And for me, I did not have any of that. So it was a big learning curve for me, and it was all very new, but it was all definitely doable. But I definitely learned a lot. And then the last summer I started working at IDEX for my co-op as a business insights analyst, and just kind of just I don't know what's the word I'm thinking of, and just like made me sure that I do not want to be a data analyst, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I'm glad I did it, because my mom always says you don't know what you want to do until you know what you don't want to do. And so I think that was good. It was good for me to see that, okay, like that's not what I want to do necessarily, but now I know that I can look for something I do want to do. And so now I'm working at a company called, I said, Peapod Digital Labs, and we're the innovation e-com digital arm of Ahold Delhaize. So we do strategy for Hannaford, Stop and Shop, Food Lion, Giant Food, Giant Company, and recently Fresh Direct. So it's really cool. It's really interesting. And I think when I got the job, I negotiated my pay with my master's salary because I was graduating soon. So I think it still comes in, like, obviously it's so handy. And I think, like kind of what Liz was saying, I think the way that data and analytics is moving forward in popularity, it's really in every single company and every single department, no matter what you do. If you're not an analyst, you're still going to be using data. So I'm glad that I have kind of like that background knowledge, and I can say, like, I can comfortably work with data. I can read charts, I can read dashboards, but I'm not the one doing it. I just know how to use it. So I think that's just for anyone thinking about coming into this program. Like, you don't have to have a job in that like degree field if you don't want to. It's just, I think it's great just to keep learning new things.
Yeah, that's a terrific point. What you're describing is data literacy, and one of the key sort of points at Northeastern is we want our learners, our graduates, to be so-called robot proof. And one of the three, there are three competencies around being robot proof. The first is knowing how to work with the machines that generate large amounts of data. The second is to know how to deal with large amounts of data at various levels of competency. And then the third is to focus on things that we can do uniquely as humans. So, you know, creativity and ethics and innovation, such like. So I'm glad to hear that you're emphasizing this. I know how to work with data now, right? You're a critical user of data. I just wanted to key off of a comment that you made, though. You said you were in a class with all these engineers. These people had a lot of math background, and I saw Liz nodding also when you were saying that. What was did you have? Can you talk a little bit about the supports around you, and or was it just like you just put your head down and just it was hard work, or both?
I mean, for me, like I said, I don't know if it was because we were the first group of students going through, but we just became very close very quickly. And I did not feel like embarrassed to say, hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? And what I did learn is that I had a lot of like more, I guess, like softer skills that some other people didn't have. Like I could make presentations, and I could do kind of more of the communication side of things. So I think you do realize that everyone has their own skill set, and it all matters, even if on paper and what you're learning in the textbook, someone else is picking up a little bit faster than you. I think it all matters. So I really leaned on my classmates. And like I said, I did not feel guilty about or embarrassed saying like, I don't understand this. And then obviously the professors are there. You can ask them questions, but I always felt it was easier just to ask my classmates.
Right. Great. Well, thank you. So just a quick plug. The Q&A button is at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions that you'd like to ask the panelists, just drop them right there in the chat in the Q&A, and they will be relayed. We'd love to hear from you and hear about what questions you might have. So keying off of the comment you just made, Sarah, about having the supports around you, and we were talking about this, that's actually one of the really powerful things about the Align program. So for those who have not heard about the Align program, it's a bridge program for non-computer science non-computer science graduates to be positioned to enroll in a master's degree in computer science. And those on-ramp courses are intended to bring learners up to speed with the critical concepts that they know. And Darrell, can you comment a little bit about this? And it's inherently a very supportive environment because of that, right? You're taking a lot of people that were perhaps told during their life that they wouldn't be good at it, or didn't feel welcome in doing it. So can you talk a little bit about the support around the Align program?
Absolutely. So just to, to give that context, so I have a BA in Russian. I spent a little bit of time in an MDiv program at a Greek Orthodox seminary in the greater Boston area. Somehow ended up in product management and in technology. So, to a certain degree, I've always been interested in computer science and programming. But every time I thought, like, how do I get there? How do I get that knowledge? It was, I don't want to get a bachelor's degree in computer science and go through all of this. The other part of it is exactly like you said, is that I'm a liberal arts major at heart. Like when I was, at the University of New Hampshire, I took sociology, statistics, where you had to be able to interpret the data, but not necessarily produce the data as my math class. Like I took the least mathy class I could ever possibly find to, get through my undergraduate education. So it was, that was always that intimidating factor. It's like, how do I do, get a degree in computer science or get into that space and, not have that, or not have to go back and take calculus classes and everything else. And in the big picture, that was what drew me to the, to the Roux, was the Align program. And having that, the first 5 classes where they're bridging you into that space. And you're largely in a room with your peers that are in that same space as well. There's a little footnote that you will get the occasional math major that was in there because they don't have their computer science degree. So all of a sudden you can start hearing those questions and it's like, well, why are you here? But most of us are in that same spot where we're liberal arts majors or majors that were not from math or science based, and it brings you all together, and the professors understand that too, so they're there to make sure you succeed through it. So that was really key. And I can't say enough about the professors that were teaching. Not all the I'm not weeding out the other professors after in the regular master's program, but the ones that were really teaching the Align classes and helping us get there, it was really key because they understood what our goal was too.
Yeah, we have very committed computer science faculty. We have very committed faculty, period. And those who teach in the Align program, they have a very special passion for that. They take a lot of pride in that program. And so yeah, that's terrific. So one of the things that you so 3 of you have landed your current jobs before you graduated. 2 of you converted co-op to a full-time job. Pretty much everyone who's going to come to the Roux Institute and do a degree or certificate is doing it so they can either move up in their job or get a new job. What kind of advice would you give to fellow students who are enrolling? Like, how did that happen for you? Well, Bae, we learned that there was an upward pull by the departure of somebody, but you positioned yourself really well to move into that role. So I asked the 3 of you who landed your roles before you graduated. So what advice would you give fellow students?
I would just say be engaged right from the start, and not that you should show off, but you should talk about the skills that you're learning about. Like, hey, I'm taking a class about project scheduling. These are the tools we're using. What tools do we use in this department here? How can we kind of find that tension and come forward with a better process, things like that. I think if you say like, oh, I'm doing a master's in project management, have people like, oh, cool, what does that really mean? And I think if you can be engaged with what the company's currently doing and then kind of show how what you're learning can integrate with that, that's where the value comes in making sure you can communicate and speak about what you're learning and how it would be applicable in those situations, kind of bringing that conversation to the forefront.
I think that in analytics, it's really similar. Like no one really knows what analytics is. Like my family still doesn't really know what analytics is. And I think that like talking about the tools and skills you're learning is really important. And my job is sort of like more of a technical position where I use SQL most days. And I think that a lot of that was self-taught in some ways. So I think that like every job, every workplace, there's like a weird tool that they use specifically, right? That like no one else uses. So I think that in like through the program, I guess, there is a lot of self-learning that has to happen, whether it's like your shortcomings in math, which I think maybe everyone on the call sort of had, or like just little things. I think just learning how to teach yourself new skills and then sort of like showing that you can teach yourself new things. Even if like your resume, you're not, an expert in Python, but that you have enough of a background that you can teach yourself and that you've taught yourself other languages. And therefore, you're confident in your abilities to teach yourself Python, even if you don't know it, like when you go for the interview.
Right.
I guess for me, and like staying on trend with what I was saying earlier, you don't have to only apply like for analytics. You don't only have to apply to roles that say analyst in them. You have a master's degree. You learned a lot beyond just data analytics. So I think don't be afraid to use that to your advantage. And like I said, like I used mine to negotiate my pay and said, hey, like I'm getting a master's in 3 months. Can I get this amount or whatever? Just, I mean, you did a lot of hard work regardless of what the title is. Like just use your master's to your benefit in whatever way you can.
Terrific. Can any of you talk about, so if there are folks on the call who have not been familiar with the co-op, what the process is to get a co-op? Like what's, how do you go about finding one? What supports are there to help you secure one? Could someone just describe that just for the audience?
I just connected with Kelly and Murphy, and she honestly just told me what she needed from me. It was, I think, a resume and then a few details about my program. And then from there, she kind of just coordinated with LL Bean, and I was pulled into the conversation at some points, but it was pretty painless for me. The Roux just has, I think, such a structure in place for that process that it's really standard. Like send me this information and we'll get you plugged in, and then you get to the interviews and stuff like that.
That's terrific.
I will say that was not my experience. And Sarah and I were applying at the same time, and we definitely went through like many rounds with multiple places. And it was sort of like a more typical sort of like application process. Kelly is a support there, but I think that a lot of the pathways that are like the partnerships aren't necessarily like I think there's like this conception that the partnerships will like literally just take you, and it isn't. There is an application process. So I guess I think it like works both ways. Like Liz's experience, like that happens, but it also happens where you have like multiple rounds with one company and still have to like keep trying for other places. So I think it's just sort of like every other process. But I will say that because the co-op job application process is unique to Northeastern, it has its own portal. So you're not like looking through other things or sort of fighting for positions that every school is applying to. It's like unique to Northeastern. There are, kids from the Boston campus who might be undergrads who will apply to the positions in Maine that we apply for as well, which is, I don't think I realized that before. But then also on the flip side, you can apply to Boston-based positions, and especially in this like hybrid world, that would be more possible without having to leave Portland or Maine, wherever you live. So I think that's sort of like a plus of the Northeastern network and the remote options.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are a couple of things that I think are really powerful about the co-op, right? Sarah mentioned one of them, which is figuring out what you want to do, but more importantly, figuring out what you absolutely never want to do again. That's kind of important. Then the other part is this process of going through the job search, the cycles of interviews, resume prep, networking, dealing with rejection, and being resilient, et cetera. That's another really powerful differentiator. So I'm going to turn just to the questions in the the Q&A. Thank you. So an anonymous attendee has asked you can feel free to go around and answer this. So what was your favorite class and what helped the most with your new role? So Darrell, let's start with you. What was your favorite class?
My favorite class was actually mobile app development.
Hmm.
So it was just fun because you can, whatever you create, you can actually carry with you. And it wasn't just creating a web app and you're going to bring someone to a website. So that was a lot of fun. I'll have to footnote that it didn't impact my role, right? Because my role hasn't changed in terms of any of this, but.
Right. Liz, what was your favorite class?
My favorite class was my very first class, Project Management 5900, I think it's called, Foundations of Project Management, just the very first one, coming in with no previous project management experience. It just kind of blew my mind because I'd never thought about I didn't know what project management was, obviously, and I didn't know it was such a developed and mature discipline, and there was PMI, Project Management Institute, and all these different templates, and I didn't realize organizations everywhere are using this process to bring about change in organizations. So I think coming into the co-op and now my full-time job, it just gave me a great foundation of how to think about change in organizations and how you can actually, these things don't just happen. There's actually a lot of steps and processes you have to follow. So I think just coming from undergrad with no experience, that was just my favorite class, got me really excited to look forward to the next class in the program.
Cool. Faye, Sarah, favorite class or something that's had the most impact on your new job?
You can go.
I was just gonna say that I don't know if I have a favorite class, and I think that just like the path of analytics, you learn one thing at like a really basic level, and the next class you learn the same thing at like a deeper level, and it's kind of like it's so repetitive in some ways that like in that sense. It also has been a while, so I honestly don't remember like all the differences in the classes, but I think that my favorite like piece of the learning, and like I did the statistical modeling concentration and like don't have an interest in doing AI, but any of the sort of classes that touch on machine learning and like I can make a machine learning model. I think that conceptually it was just really cool to learn about that, and it's like not something that I want in my career, but so much of the world now is like robots listening to you and then curating ads for you and like curating music for you and curating Netflix shows to watch. And so I think that at like sort of a conceptual level, understanding big data and how, companies use it both like to manipulate the public and also like for our good to, curate content for us, has been really interesting, even if it sort of goes into the lifelong learner thing. Like I don't want to do that for a living, but it's really cool to learn about and to see all the math that goes into that. And
That's great.
I think content-wise, my favorite was probably data visualization, just because I think it can really go into so many different other lanes. And even now, a lot of what I'm doing at my job is like creating PowerPoints and doing a lot of visual communicating. So I think just little things that I learned in that class kind of carry through to a lot of other topics as well. But I also really liked our 60/80, which is like an integrative class, just because I think our project was really fun and I liked my group, and it was just kind of a chance for the classmates to get together and show off what we can do.
Cool. That's cool. Just another quick plug. The Q&A is open. I have one more question that came up in the Q&A chat board. So if you're online and would like to talk to our graduates about their experience at the Roux Institute or anything else, please just drop it right in the Q&A. So this came from, well, it says it comes from the Roux Institute at Northeastern University. I'm sure that is a person that did this, but it says, I have a question for Liz. What did you choose for your concentration in project management, and how has this influenced and contributed to your work as a project manager at LL Bean? And then following, I'm also curious if you chose your concentration after your co-op or if you knew beforehand the focus you wanted.
Right, great question. I chose right from the beginning to do the data analytics concentration just because I didn't have a lot of experience in that area, and looking at the other concentrations, there were a lot of things that I was naturally interested in, like leadership, I think is one of them. And I thought later in life, I'll be naturally interested in that, and I'll probably be a self-learner in that. Data analytics, I'm not likely to pick up on my own later. So kind of took advantage of the structure of the classes to get a good foundation in that. And it's been hard. It's definitely been a challenge at times. I was like, was this the right choice? But and then getting more into my full-time role, it's definitely the right choice. You have to be data literate. Managing projects, especially whether you're making a dashboard or working with the development team. I recently just took a class in SQL, and knowing how organizational databases work has been so helpful on my current project, just understanding risks, because if you don't understand how the databases work, you can't really appropriately do risk management. So just every class I took, I was kind of like, oh, this is annoying and difficult to do, coding and stuff like that. But I would go to work the next day or something, and something would come up. I'm like, oh, I actually know about this, and I can do my job a lot better because of it. So yeah, it was a challenge, but I'm looking back, I would definitely make the same choice because it's really important subject to know about.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Okay, so oh, there's another one. So here's a question that I don't know the answer to. It's and it's starting the analytics in 2021 didn't continue. Now I think I needed to start by the Align program or shift to project management. Is it possible? I believe the answer is yes. But if you send me an email, I will put you in touch with somebody who can answer that question in a way that is probably more accurate than I can do. So please, by all means, m.pollastri@northeastern.edu. Happy to make a connection for you. Cool. So can any of you talk a little bit about what besides landing a new job, right? That's you all did this, right? What other impact has it had on your life? Like, so what sorts of, how has it impacted your life other than getting a new job? Can you talk a little bit about that? Or, you don't have a whole lot of distance on the experience yet, so maybe it's premature to know, but I'm interested to hear what your initial thoughts are.
I can say for me, I think the analytics program, a lot of it, I mean, you have lectures and there's guided modules, but a lot of it was teaching yourself things and being comfortable teaching yourself things. So I'd say now that I've gone through a year and a half of that, and it's kind of like a skill, I would say now. So I think, at work or just in life, if someone says, can you do this? And at the current time, I can't, I feel more confident saying I can't right now, but I probably can figure out how to do it, just because I think we had to do that so much, like so many Google searches, diving into Reddit threads and just all these different things, trying to figure things out. So I think, I just feel more confident knowing that I can figure things out if I need to.
Great.
Yeah, and I'd say to carry on that, that confidence, I think, is what, for me has arrived, especially like, I'm in natural language processing right now. And if I had looked at the syllabus before I took this program, I would have turned and ran, because it starts off by saying, you need to have calculus and, linear algebra and statistics and optimization and algorithms. And if you'd asked me if I could do that, in the end of December 2020, before I enrolled, I would have said absolutely not. Not that I didn't go in with a little trepidation now, but I felt much more comfortable going into it. So it created a lot more confidence in what my abilities were in places where I doubted myself before.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And this is again, sort of riffing off of being the lifelong learner. Even if you can't figure it out, you've learned how to learn now, and figure out how to collaborate, solve problems, and things like that. Really, any graduate education, that's really the goal, right? We want our graduates to be able to go out and be adaptable and take whatever role they want in the future. So thanks for those answers. Those are great. Deborah Groff, just wanted to say congratulations to all the graduates. So I'm relaying that to the four of you, plus any of the graduates who are also online and listening. A question from Ula Polsky. What class do you wish you would have taken at the Roux but didn't, either because it wasn't offered in your program or because it was in a different concentration and you didn't have time to take it?
There's actually, I'm sort of the kind of person who will look at the course catalogs and like plan the classes I'm going to take. And I think you kind of have to be that way when you go through the program this quickly anyways. But one class that I saw on the catalog that I actually don't know if it was ever even offered like at the Boston campus, but there's an analytics elective that's like a GIS class. And I recently like fell into this hole where I was geocoding some data to make a map, and it was really fun, but I realized it would have been a lot faster if I had learned how to do it like from someone, or like just tips and tricks to how to do it. I don't think I maybe made a map in R like for a class at some point, but it wasn't ever the same level. And then even looking when I look at sort of like jobs now or what other analysts are doing, and there's like a lot of like GIS analytics and like humanitarian work that is really interesting to me, and like movement, like human movement, and then as well as in terms of like climate change related GIS work. So I wish I had looked harder for that class.
That's great.
I would have liked to have taken some of the construction management. I think it's a different concentration within project management. That just seems really interesting to me, and kind of getting into my role. A lot of the products of my projects are intangible, but with construction management, obviously that's tangibles, and the way they structure the projects is just a little different. So I think that would be really interesting.
I mean, at this point, I'll just mention that, more and more we're finding that people are taking classes because they're interested in the class and they have the prerequisites. You can just register for the class as a special student, or we do have some opportunities for people to register to take some specialized, some of the more specialized classes. So I think we would definitely be open to that, because it's clear that higher education is going to be moving away more and more from the degree and certificate credentials into more stackable experiences. And that what you just described is exactly that kind of experience where you can stack that into your, on top of your master's degree. So that's great. Darrell, do you want to?
Yeah, I was going to say one other thing. It's sort of the in retrospect item, right? Because you don't know where you're going to end up, right? So I focused very much on software engineering to tie in with my, the platforms I've been working on from a product perspective. This new role that I'm taking on is in security. If I had known I was going to be in security, I should have taken some security courses, but I didn't, so like if I had the time, I could, think back. It's not necessarily that when I was looking, I was like, wow, I really wish I could take this, but knowing where I'm going now, I'm like, geez, I wish I had taken at least one.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's similar to what I was just saying to Liz. Maybe we can come up with a creative opportunity for that, to further expand what you've been learning. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that, or you basically took everything you wanted to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, maybe some more project management courses, or maybe just like, I don't know, things outside of what the Roux offers, but Northeastern does, kind of more in the field that I am today. Like maybe something in supply chain, just because working in grocery, obviously that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Great. These are great answers. So we have about 10 minutes left. And so I just wanted to give you all a chance to see, we were established in order to impact Maine, right? The goal was to build opportunities in the tech and life science fields, where there hasn't historically been as much. So there's that impact that we hope we're having, right? Is building that talent. But what sorts of impact do you all see from your standpoint as, you know, citizens and students, citizens of the city and of the state, and as students that are emerging into the job market?
I think the biggest impact that I found with my own experience was just being able to stand out in the job market. You're like just having the skills, and a lot of my friends the same age, they didn't choose to go into a master's program. They're really struggling to compete in the piles of resumes. And then I think a lot of them now are kind of thinking like, oh, I need to get some more specific skills. I need to start looking at these programs. And I'm hearing more people when I say like, oh, I'm at the Roux Institute, people are like, oh yeah, I read an article about that. Or it's getting more, people are becoming more aware of it. And I think it might take a little bit of time, but I don't know, I think we're building something really big, and I personally can feel the impact, and I'm excited to see how it kind of bubbles up throughout for the whole state.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's cool that we're the first class going through, but in some ways, Maine is not ready for us quite yet. And so I think that there's definitely still a retention problem, and there's still a hiring problem. I think a lot of these companies, these like big legacy Maine companies, are still hiring based on experience and not potential. And that's kind of what us as these Roux students bring. So like if you're switching fields, or if you're like Liz just graduated from undergrad going to right into master's, I think like that shows so much like dedication and strength and like the ability to learn. And so I think companies need to start hiring based on that and not based on 20 years experience in the field. So I think that like we're lucky that we all got jobs now, because I think Maine is still it's still tough, and there's still people leaving because they can't work in the field they want to, or they can't get a job at the company they want to. So I'm excited to see in 10 years or 20 years kind of how Maine adapts to the Roux mentality and what we're trying to build here.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. You know, early on when we started talking to partners, our initial partners, you know, we would ask them questions like, what kinds of talent would you like to hire in the future, right? And sort of predict in the future, knowing that there's a 1 to 2 year lag time, because, you know, people enroll in a 1 or 2 year program for a cert or a degree. And that's how we ended up with the programs that we have. So now we look to the industry that we talk to and say, okay, here's your talent. Go and do likewise.
It's your turn. And I think like Will Bay was saying with the co-ops, and it was still kind of hard for us to get co-ops, and because I think it was just such a new concept to the companies in Maine. And so yeah, I'm excited to see, like, they asked for this talent, so I'm excited to see them embrace the talent.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah, I think the one other thing to add into that too is, and I shouldn't say this to a partnerships person, but you know, not necessarily reflecting on what do the partnerships get out of it, but like I was, when I enrolled, I was working for a partner. I'm leaving a partner to work for a, you know, global brand that I wouldn't have been able to get into without this degree program, but I'm not leaving Maine either. So I'll be part of the Maine tech community. And from that perspective, also in terms of, I expect that, you know, this where I am now isn't where where I'm going to isn't going to be where I'm going to be forever, right? So maybe I have a startup or work with others in the community to bring other things to Maine that weren't there before. So I think it's going to take time to see that, but I think we're going to start to see that bubble up too.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's a really good point, Darrell. Thank you. Anyone else have any parting shots before we wrap this up?
I guess I'll add that I feel like one of the biggest impacts that I've seen is that there, like, at least for some of us in the call and like a lot of people that I know, like we wouldn't be in Maine if the Roux hadn't opened when it did. I mean, there's also like the pandemic that sort of threw off like a lot of people's plans. But I was trying to leave Maine, and I stayed for the Roux. And then I know a lot of people sort of like used it almost as an excuse to like come back to Maine. Or like that wasn't really like an option before because of the job opportunities. But I think that on the flip side of that, I'm from Maine, and I don't know if it would have been possible for me to like find a job elsewhere if it hadn't been for the Roux. So even if I don't stay in Maine, I still think that's like a win for the Roux, because it's like helping local people like achieve like more than the state has to offer. So I think it's like both things, that like the retention of Mainers, but also the opportunity for them to leave.
We prefer it if you stay. But yes, no, you're exactly right. Ultimately, what it comes down to, and we tell our learners this hopefully all the time, ultimately, this is your life, your career. Here are the skills you need to succeed in this field and be flexible for what comes next. And so you're absolutely right, Faye. That's exactly right. So, all right. So I will just close this session by thanking the panel. We're very proud of you. We're very, very excited to celebrate with you on Friday. It's going to be a great day. I hope you're taking advantage of the events going on this week. And we're very excited to see what comes next from all of you. I'd like to congratulate all the graduates and thank everyone who connected and joined in this panel. So thanks very much. See you next time.
Thanks, bye.